Hi guys, it's Micah. Today we're going to take a look at the Hush Tarot. I know the meanings of the cards are a little hard to understand and abstract, so we're going to compare it to My Rider-Waite by the Dark Forest as usual. The Hush does come with a book. I flipped through it for cards that I wasn't so sure about, but wasn't really satisfied. So, we're going to make up our own stories, right? So, the Fool. I've owned ferrets before. I think this is more of a wild weasel, but anyway. They definitely don't look before they leap. Free-spirited, rambunctious, cute little fun animals. And it does have little moth companions. So, the Magician. Now, she doesn't have the typical, all the tools, at least that I've noticed. But she does have an animal that she appears to be putting back together. Maybe this is a soul or some sort of spirit she's working with. But what I get from this card is like the doing, right? Like she's the person you go to work on the craft, to accomplish something. And comparing that to the High Priestess, the Magician is kind of the one who does, and the High Priestess is the one who, like, knows the secrets. So we don't have that traditional symbology, but it's like she's kind of whispering to her bird, right? Like she knows things that normal people don't and that they can't hear. Okay, the Empress is a little bit tricky. But a lot of people think like, pregnancy, birth, things like that, but it's really about creation, right? And in the Hush, you can see she's like a living doll. And also the Empress is like the Queen of Queens, like the Emperor is King of Kings, right? So maybe she's like the embodiment of the female energy in this magical world. Um, if she can create life like herself and the nature seems to be a part of her, then like I can still work with that. Like I said, it's quite different, but if I can attach some sort of meaning to the RWS instead of just pretty paintings, then it makes more sense when I try to work with them. So, like I said, the Emperor, like the King of Kings. So, if you were in medieval times or thinking of it even now, like a king or a president, like you're not going to meet them, right? Chances are. They're going to be in the background. Like the rules are known and witnessed by the citizens, by the creatures. And these hands are kind of showing that control, in my opinion. And it's almost like the crow is reminding everyone, it's the day for the parade for the emperor, right? Like, be on your best behavior. The Hierophant. So, traditionally, whoops, we have like structure, institutions, disciples, hidden knowledge, like that you can only acquire through them. The Hush still has the crossed keys, but the statue seems to be falling apart. Almost like um, they don't have to follow that traditional system here. Maybe nature kind of governs itself, right? Getting out of focus. There we go. So it's a different take, but it's kind of reflective to society now. There's less people following those mainstream religions. But still, maybe the birds are gathering at this spot for the knowledge. Maybe one of the birds is a teacher. Okay, the lovers. The art for the hush is a little different than the rest of the cards, but that's okay because it makes it feel almost more divine. We don't have the angel, but we have like the peacock and the kind of halo going on. It makes it seem more like sacred or important, long lasting. All right, so the Chariot. We still have like the stars on the banner. And yes, the horse is like broken and it's like a carousel horse, so I'm not really sure how well it would move, but we have to think of this as like a fictional landscape, right? Like they can do their own things in this world. So we're just gonna say that there's movement and it's going to be determined by this character. And she still has a crown. Okay, strength. So we don't have a lion. She's like tangled up with string and bats and bugs, but she doesn't look fazed by it, right? She's another like living doll creature and she's kind of broken, so it doesn't matter the scars we have, the battles we've been through, to have that strength to like carry on anyway. Like, she doesn't care. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep doing what I need to do. So that's okay by me. The Hermit. So once again, not much symbology for the norm, but he is off on his own. Looks like he got a meal there. But he has inner gears, you know, that are working. And it is an owl. So working on that inner wisdom, taking time to be by yourself, figure things out, go a little away from society. And then maybe he can teach the other little birds what he's learned in that process. Okay, so for the wheel, we got a little ant on a leaf. I assume rain, you know, came in and swept him away. So with the wheel, life is a cycle of things being good and bad, right? Everything has to end for something new to start. It's how life is. This ant doesn't know where the current's going to go, but I think that makes a lot of sense for the wheel card because it's something you don't necessarily have control over, right? You kind of got to go with the ebbs and flows of life sometimes. Okay, justice. I didn't notice this before, but I like that they kept like the red cloth in the background. And instead of a sword and scales, she has like a staff axe and an arrow. And these ants are like ready for battle too. They're like, come on. So I kind of get the vibe that, you know, that decision has either already been weighed or she's following these creatures like to court. But I think it's more so after sentencing. They're like, all right, the punishment's going to be served. And she looks quite capable to do so. Beautiful. So for my storyline with this deck to work, some of the cards I think are before and or after, depending. So for the Hanged Man, we typically have, you know, person hanging upside down, illuminating that they're focused on their thoughts and what they need to be focused on. So in the hush, they got a mask on, so they don't have a mouth anymore. Like, it's not time to speak, it's time to hush, right? And it's almost like they're either tying up their leg to hang, or they're done with that process and they came down and they're untangling themselves to take off the mask and move on. The Death card. I think this one's, pretty simple, and you can see like the little bird. So for something to die, to become food for the adult to feed the baby, and then eventually the adult will die and the baby will have babies of its own. So it's just that cycle. All right, Temperance. I had a little bit of an issue with this card. Typically, it's showing balance and knowledge and calm, right? And then this one, she has a bird mask and she's talking to her little bird friend. So, not 100% sure. I thought about this card earlier and now I'm completely blanking. But maybe she used to have to put on a mask to communicate, but she's developed past that point. So she is balanced enough to understand the needs of others without, I don't know, illusion? I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I blanked out. Can't get them all, right? So the Devil. This card's usually fairly intimidating, bondage. And this is just cute. So, I take it as whether it's us or other people, wearing masks, we either pretend to be something we're not. I don't think the devil is some being that forces us to do wrong, right? Like, we always have that decision of whether or not to be influenced, whether it's all in our head and we're influencing ourselves to do something that we know isn't good for us. But it's, breaking down that illusion, and realizing like who you really are and what's best for you instead of other people, instead of, being disillusioned. The Tower. Typically very chaotic card, right? And in the Hush, it's quite peaceful. Like, the birds aren't scared. I think it's kind of refreshing not to have like a traumatic tower card, so when you pull it in a reading, you're like, okay, something big's gonna happen and shake things up, but it's not visually aggressive. And that's cool. Okay, the Star card. I love this Star card, I'll tell you why. So usually, Star cards like don't do it for me. I don't know why. I'm just like, eh. But I like to think of it as the star comes after the tower. So, say like this king or queen, fell from that situation, like it's done now. And now there's like new life and happiness. Like, things always feel the best after something bad, right? Like, if you get sick, you feel terrible, and then once you start to feel better, you're like, wow, like, this is magnificent. And that's kind of how I feel about this card. I had a tower year last year, and it was very hard, and this is my star year, so that's kind of how I view it. The Moon. So the moon and the sun kind of go together. They don't really follow RWS very much, so I'll just compare them to... So how this eye is looking up, it almost looks unsure or a little bit afraid. And this eye looks, you know, bright and confident and like looking forward. So it kind of gives me that illusion and clarity vibe. Judgment. This is another one I struggled with this deck. So I don't love traditional symbolism with this, like the you know, Armageddon awakening thing. So I like to compare this card to the world when explaining it to myself. So there are phases whenever you have a change in life and you're thinking back on it, like she's looking to the past, you realize you're a different person than you used to be. Whether that's after a long-term relationship or anything that's happened, like you become a little bit more awakened. You look back and you're like, I'm not the person that I was back then. So it's like a mini self-awakening. And then the world, she's looking forward and there's like all this growth and like little like buildings and everything's kind of encompassed, and she looks like she belongs, like she's part of the world. And I like how they have that like banner going around her still. The Ace of Cups. I love this card. Okay, so typically like the water overflowing, but I like the fact that if you pictured, I don't know, a creepy, macabre movie and they hand you like a chalice and it's like a skull, right? Like that's a cool cup. And this bird looks like young and happy and alive. So I think it's representing like that new burst of emotion. I like it. Two of Cups. I'm so happy it's not a romantic Two of Cups. So they should be sharing equally, right? Sharing emotions, equally invested in each other. And that is totally what I get from this card. I can't think of the name of bird people, but it kind of reminds me of like queen and princess, or like mother and daughter. But look at all these people they probably like ate down here. Like they probably entrapped them together and are you know, sharing. Like I think they're equally invested in each other and the life they have together. Harpies. That's the word. Harpies, I think. Yes, sorry. Interrupted myself. But yeah, love it. It doesn't have to be romantic to be an emotional, you know, attachment. So, Three of Cups, a lot of people get thrown off by this because typically it's, you know, the three women celebrating. But my mom loved merry-go-rounds, like the carousel horses. So, she's riding like Black Phillip. If anybody's seen the witch movie, love it. And she got like her happy bunny, like her bunny's like jumping in the air. I don't know how happy the goat is, but like you can celebrate like by yourself. Or these are just her companions, you know, she's having fun with them. So I'm okay with it. Four of Cups. So we're losing that symbology of somebody trying to give you a gift or emotions and you're just like, I'm not having it, like I don't care. And the lack of anything in the background and the expression, she just doesn't seem interested. You know, she's like a teenage girl. You're like, hey, do you want this? And she's like, no, leave me alone. So like I kind of get that vibe. Like she's just not having it. She doesn't care. All right, the Five of Cups, the loss, the grief. So we don't like have symbology in this deck. I keep saying it, but she does look unhappy, right? Like when you put your hands to your face and you're like, I can't believe this just happened, like tragic. And the coloration of the card, it's very dark, right? Compared to the rest. So it gives you that moment of like pause and those deep emotions. All right, the Six of Cups, it's a little odd because this one actually has cups and one's knocked over, but the bunnies don't care. They don't use cups anyway. So this can be like a gift or looking back on like fond memories. And we'll just say that's what the bunnies are doing. They're like, oh, remember last year when we had all those little baby bunnies? And they were super great, but I'm kind of glad they're gone because now we can like rest. You know, like it's okay. The bunnies are hanging out. They're just talking. All right, so the Seven of Cups. I had to get creative with this one. So typically the person has to decide like where they want to invest that emotion, that time, a choice that they need to make. And if you look, she has her eyes closed. So I'm thinking this is all happening in her head. There's a lot going on. I think she's like manifesting this. And it's overwhelming. Like you realize you can't have all the things at once because it's going to end up like this. It's going to be chaotic and irrational. So maybe if she only chose the horse or the bird or the snake, it wouldn't feel tumultuous. All right, Eight of Cups. I love this card. Typically, you know, you're leaving something behind. You're like, no longer serves me. I'm out. And that's what I get from this. She's like talking to her owl buddy and is like, all right, I'm putting my bird hat on. We're leaving. I'm done with this. It's not serving me anymore. Like, we're out. And the owl's like, all right, you know, gather your stuff, get on my back, we'll fly away. The Nine of Cups. Most people don't like this card. He's smug and yeah, but he's fulfilled. So, for the emotional self-fulfillment, this works for me. Beautiful cup filled with flowers. So yeah, it's for you. It's for one person. You have everything you need. I like it. All right, 10 of Cups. So, typically, you know, happy home, happy family, rainbow people. I don't have kids, and the only person I'm really close with in my family is my dad. So, I don't really like when cards like that come up. But this makes sense. So, a lot of birds mate for life. And, yeah, so they're emotionally attached. You know, they're gonna come back to roost the same place every year, have offspring. I think it's a beautiful card. All right, the Page of Cups. Usually the guy with the cup, with the fish, you know, talking to it. So, like, this is like the slightly, possibly immature emotion. And from what I get, like, this bird's just singing its song, saying what it has to say, emotionally vibrant, and it doesn't realize that, you know, maybe this wasp isn't going to take what it says in the way it was meant to be. Maybe the wasp will sting the bird, you know. So it's kind of like that emotional release without like thought of consequence, maybe. That like naive, well, everybody's going to take what I say the way that I intend it to. Sorry, guys. Bumping stuff really bad. My cat's doing something in the background. Okay. Alright, we got the Knight of Cups. Mr. Romance. But I like this card. I know she has a sword, and it's more movement than normal. But what I get is, like, what would you do for love? You know? You'd ride into battle, right? For your mother, your child, your partner. And I really like that idea. You know, she's charging forward like, I'm going to save my man or whoever. And that, this means more to me than this. All right. Queen of Cups, you know, she got all the emotions. She has enough to share to help others. And she almost looks like worried. And she got the happy bird, and she's like nurturing the plants. So it's like you have to pay attention to how much you give of yourself to others sometimes, so you don't get worn out. You know? And the sun and the moon in the background, like that light and shadow, like she can give you like emotional joy, compassion. Okay, King of Cups. So, to me, I get the fact that he isn't, you know, overly invested like maybe she is with other people and their emotions, but he's in control of his enough to still be willing to put out that open hand, you know, ask how you're doing, how you're feeling. He's stable enough to share without, you know, possible negative effects. I'm just making this up as I go, guys. So, the Ace of Swords. I got a girl on an armored unicorn. She's definitely moving forward. It's almost like when you get that that thought, that idea, that inspiration, and you're just like, whoa. That's kind of what I get, you know. There's stuff going on. All right, Two of Swords. This one's a little bit more complicated than the simplistic RWS. So it's about decision making. A choice between two or more things that might not necessarily go the way you want. Maybe not a perfect ending. This card also has like the mask, right? So there's 3 kittens. So it's kind of like who's gonna pick up that role? Who's gonna play the leader or the follower? Where do we go from here? And since they're kittens, maybe they're at that age where they have to go out on their own now. Like maybe mama cat's like, you know, you're old enough, I'm done with you. So they have to decide like what to do, where to go. And in the book, it did say making a decision can feel like rallying up kittens. But I think the card's a little bit more calmer than that. All right. Whoop. 3 of Swords. Heartbreak. She does appear to be stabbed in the back. And the birds are like, oh no, are you okay? And she's like, holy crap. You know, this just knocked me on my butt. And that's how it feels, you know, betrayal. When somebody hurts you and you completely weren't expecting it. It's a bad feeling. All right, easy card. 4 of Swords, Rest. Another one. 5 of Swords, we got our Sneaky Pete. Don't trust that mustache, man. All right, so Six of Swords, we do got the person moving along in the boat. They do look troubled. Like, it's not going to be an easy voyage. But it doesn't look like it is necessarily either in the normal one, right? Like, they're shrouded, they're bent over. You're not necessarily happy about it, but it's something that you have to do. You know, we're gonna leave this negativity behind. Like, once we reach the shore, there's no more piranhas. We'll hopefully be safe and not in that situation anymore. All right, Seven of Swords is interesting. So we just kind of have to assume that this bird took it from someone else, but like, realistically, you don't need this many swords. Like, you can't, I don't believe so, operate that many swords at one time, right? Like, you're kind of being greedy and selfish, rude, possibly. And if you notice, like, this bird's not actually in flight. So maybe it realizes, like, the burden that it took is too heavy to carry. It's, like, not flapping. Or maybe it's thinking about, like, did I just do something wrong? Like, I don't really need all these keys, but I took them anyway. Eight of Swords. So, tied up, blindfolded, swords. She's not blindfolded, but she does have her eyes closed. She is bound. So, you know, stuck in that process of making a decision, not sure. All right. Nightmare card, stress, anxiety. I don't really, you know, this image is kind of boring and played out to me, so I like that these like big rock burdens are almost breaking away, but she's like holding on to one. So she's not ready to quite like let go of the situation. All right, Ten of Swords. Instead of the swords, we got flowers. But they're not piercing her, they're like growing out of her. And I'm not sure if this is just a flower or if it's like illuminated. She's gonna get back up. She's gonna grow from that moment of defeat. So we got another harpy, Page of Swords. So they got the idea like they're playing with it, but we don't really have movement or direction yet. And we kind of get that from here, you know. Maybe she's, you know, just learning how to fly, but she doesn't really know where she's going to go yet. She doesn't know where those thoughts are going to lead. So we got the Knight of Swords, usually like quick action, gung-ho, like go for it. Can be hasty though. And we got this guy with his ants like on the hunt. He's doing it. He's prepared. He got the helmet. Maybe not quite dressed for it, but you know, going in anyway. So maybe that can be that ego that kind of shows up in this card sometimes. You know, doing it even if you're not actually prepared, maybe for the consequences. All right. Every time I see a Queen of Swords, she's like, come hither. If I don't like what you say, you know, off with your head. And I get this. She seems partially approachable and partially like you don't want to mess with her, right? She's taking off the mask to speak. So she's going to tell you the truth. Whether that be brutal or not. So there's a lot of birds for kings in this deck. I don't mind so much when it's like the air suit, right? This king's very like poised and confident. And I mean, this bird looks pretty big and unintimidated. And it's easier for me to relate when it's an air suit compared to later on. Ace of Pentacles. So instead of the hand with the pentacle, it's the bird with the key. And, you know, that key could be anything. Could be your brand new Mercedes that you're winning. But yeah, same concept. All right, Two of Pentacles, balancing your resources. This card was a little hard because it's a grenade and the bird has a pin in its mouth, and this one's like, are you sure? So the kind of story I made up about this one is maybe the grenade represents like safety, right? Like it's like nobody's gonna hurt us if we stay here. But at the same time, like you gotta fly away and eat. Like there's other things you have to do. You can't like stay in that safe, stagnant spot, or else like you won't move forward. So maybe you got to balance out your time, your resources. You can't stay in the spot forever. Okay. Three of Pentacles. Typically, you know, they're working on something together. So, yes, I know there's a cup in this card. I like to think of it as like the water cooler at work, right? So these birds are like, yeah, how's that project going? Good, great, you know, like we got this. That's how I can relate to it. All right, Four of Pentacles, holding on to your resources, possibly too tight. So we got a bird here perched on a carcass, I assume, and like he's guarding it. Like, this is mine. I'm gonna stay here until every last bit of it's gone. But then we also get, you know, if he's stuck in this position, then he's not off doing the other things, you know. Five of Pentacles, loss of resources, not having enough. So the book says, like when you're in debt, it feels like you're underwater. So like that's the correlation with this card. But you definitely see like lack. Like she feels like she doesn't have anything. Like there's no flowers, there's no animals. Like she's like by herself, like stuck in this moment. Like we can always change. If we can't change the situation, we can change how we, you know, work with it. Six of Pentacles, we got the scales and the giving. We got that in this card. He looks not necessarily happy about it, but he kind of looks like a monk. So, like, that's cool. Or a friar. I don't know. All right. So, Seven of Pentacles, we're looking at the growth that we accomplished. So, typically it's like standing there, like staring at it. So, what I think about this beautiful card is she, you know, she planted or whatever she did. We'll say she planted her garden. And then, like, she locked the key and she's, like, resting now. Like, I did everything I can. The bird's like, you sure you locked up? And she's like, yes, bird. I locked up. Everything's fine. You know, now we just have to wait. Eight of Pentacles. Easy one. Got that working. They even both have a hammer and chisel, so easy translation there. Queen of Pentacles. We both got the bird. She doesn't look as satisfied, but that's just kind of the art style. She does have like this lavish, adorned feather necklace. So maybe if the background was a different color or something, it would give a little bit of a vibe, but it is what it is. So, Ten of Pentacles. Like I said, I don't really have that big family thing to relate to when I pull cards like this. Like, I don't have like a legacy necessarily. So it's interesting when you see them by themselves. But what I noticed that I really like is they both have bridges. So even though this woman's by herself, like admiring the beauty, we can relate it to like the beauty of her community, like where she lives. Chances are she didn't build that bridge by herself for herself, right? So it implies that that structure, like the bridge is going to be there for a long time. The Page of Pentacles. All right. This is a simple version. You know, admiring what you have, right? And here's how I kind of relate. I love like the Black Phillip goats again. But okay, so like the Page of Pentacles, I often think of when people inherit or are, you know, brought up in a very financially stable environment. They might not necessarily like appreciate all the work that went into having what they have. So I like that she's like pointing to her mind. Because she might not realize, you know, to have like those gold masks and like the goats that provide like the milk and the food or whatnot. But I'm implying that she's, you know, thinking about it and is like, I do have enough. And like, where do I go from here? Like, how do I keep this sustained? Words are becoming difficult. All right, so Knight of Pentacles, typically like slow growth, but like the fields are plowed. You know, he's on a horse, so he's doing something. It just takes a while. You know, money can take a while to earn, invest, build up. So it's like the hands of Earth have offered the key. So it has what it needs. And, you know, birds build nests. So it has like the gift of material to go off and build the nest for itself, for its family. Okay, Queen of Pentacles, you know, she's kind of admiring it. And typically when I think queen, I think more compassionate and sharing with whatever suit it represents. So she's in like this beautiful wedding dress and she has all her bird companions. So I think it's one of those she has and is willing to share, to give. It doesn't seem like she wants to be like rich and alone and just a snob about it. Okay, King of Pentacles. So when I think of Pentacles, I not only think material, but I think time. You know, like time is a resource. So the thought of like the father time influence plus like the wisdom. And another way I think about this is there's not a lot of men in this deck. So like what if this is you know, like hanging on like the king's wall, right? I could picture like him like look over and like talking to the owl like, okay, it's that time, like let's do the thing. I don't know if this makes sense, but I want to do it. I'm doing it. So the Ace of Wands, right? So inspiration, creativity, drive, like this is like the doing. And this card's slightly alarming. And, you know, nobody wants a needle near their eye. But it's like when you finally like get that idea, like that inspiration, like that drive, it's like an alarm clock goes off in your brain. Like I can't sit down and draw unless I have that like spark. And that's what it reminds me of. You're like, oh crap, like I'm doing it. Like it's time. Like wake up, get up, do it. Two of Pentacles. It's like the birds just like looking out, like I can go anywhere. I can fly anywhere in the world. So it's just kind of like looking out, figuring out where to go. I like it. So, Three of Wands. I struggled with this a little bit because typically it's like, you know, you've done work, your ships are coming in, or you've made that decision of where to go and you're embarking on it. But how I like to look at this hush is in sequence. So we're going to do it like this. So you're thinking about where to go. And that's the 2. And then the 4 is celebrating like what you've accomplished so far. So if you look at them all together, it's almost like this bird met up with these birds. I know they're different birds, just roll with it. So this bird met up with these birds, and they're doing something, right? Like they're working on something, which leads to celebrating what they worked on. Oops, yeah, I forgot. We all know. All right. All right. Five of Wands, basically fair competition. The snakes are all the same size. I'm wondering if they're egg-eating snakes. That's a thing. But this one like doesn't even realize, I don't think, that like these two already have it, but yeah. Fairly easy to get the gist of that one. Six of Wands, we got the celebration. So she still has her staff, spear. Even the bird has one. All right, we got the Eight of Wands. Okay, so this is another like before or after card. Or Seven of Wands, I'm sorry. So typically we see a person that's in mid motion of defending themselves or whatever they're defending, ideas, something. And this is kind of like she's either already just done that or she's like setting up to do it. But she's still by herself, right? So she has to overcome all those other spears like by herself, which would feel ganged up on. All right, here we go. Eight of Wands, typically just like the swiftness, movement. So this one I had to think about. So I'm thinking like this, some of them you can kind of see the positive and negative or reversal in the image. So she's like not doing anything, like I'm done. But it's almost like as she was resting, these weeds like shot up through the earth and the birds are like chilling on it, like her alarm clock almost. Like it's time to move. So like, do you choose to like move out of this with like quick action, or are you gonna like stay stagnant? Now I got the Nine of Wands. It's like the injured warrior. He's won the wands, but he's not sure if people are like gonna come back. He's not quite ready to sit down and take that breath of relief yet. And here we got like the horse. I like to think that it was with the rider. It's somewhere over there. So it already won these spears from the opponents, but it's not willing to let the one out of its mouth yet. It's like, I better hold on to this. You know, maybe it's running back home or, you know, wherever. All right, Ten of Wands. We got that burden, trying to do so many things that it's hard to keep it all together. I wanted this story to like correlate with the previous cards, but I couldn't get it to work. So we're just gonna say, you know, having a giant kitten like 8 times the size of you would definitely be a burden. I mean, sometimes we love the things, you know, you might love a project that's a crap ton of work, but you know, you're gonna do it anyway. Okay. So Page of Wands, typically like looking at the staff, like I have an idea. Like I'm getting used to these creative endeavors, but they're, you know, they're still in that naive process of learning. So like this page, she created like a living doll creature out of the spare parts in the story. And if that's not creativity, I don't know what is. And you can see she's physically like moving forward. She's like, all right, let's do this. Then we got the Page of Wands, you know, fire energy, movement. Here I get the same vibe. I'm glad it's a cardinal, so it's red. But yeah, she's like just about to take flight. Like she knows where she's going. She knows what she's doing. So I had the most trouble with the wand suit. So the Queen of Wands is typically like simple for me to interpret. But this one I was like struggling with. I was like, did she drown the bird? Is she helping the bird? So what I've decided is wands are like passion, creativity, drive, things like that. So I think she's rescuing the bird. She already like pulled out the arrow that injured it. There's like these stars dangling. She's like, bite onto this, like I'll pull you up. In my head, she's already like planning for the future. Like, you know, after you're healed up, like I got this great restaurant, like we're gonna go to, I got a play you would be perfect in. Like she looks like she's thinking, like the wheels are turning. But yeah, the compassion, that's the feminine energy. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, lastly, we got the King of Wands. So it's hard with me with the bird for the wands. But I'm thinking that maybe, you know, some loss or death of a situation happened. But this bird, we'll say it like reincarnated. So the drive is there so much that it's like pulling the strings of the soul along with it, and it's just going to keep going on with its journey. Because like the wands are like the bravery, the drive, the creativity, the doing. And it's like this soul didn't skip a beat. So let me know what you think. I tried. Hopefully some people made it to the end. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.